Well, good morning, Transit. How are we doing today? Staying dry, I hope. Yes, it's a lot of rain outside. Hey, if it's your first time here, we're so glad that you're here, and we hope you have the best time. If you need anything at all while you're here, feel free to ask any adult around you, and we'll help get you to where you need to go. But my name is Lauren, and if you weren't here last week, we started a brand new series that we're calling Great Friends, which I love that we talk about when we're going back to school, because that's when we're going to see all of our friends again, and we might even make new friends this year. So it's important to talk about how do we have good friendships. But before we dive in, I thought we could play really kind of like a little trivia, okay? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put a picture of some famous friends on the screen, and I'm just going to ask you some simple questions about them, okay? Sound good? Okay, great. Here we go. First one. Who are they? Crushed it. Yes, A+. Would you consider them to be great friends? Yeah. Do you remember how they met? How? Andy brought Buzz home, right? What did Woody think of Buzz when he got there? Yeah. He was what? Jealous. Yes. But they became great friends. Now, did their friendship have conflict? Yes. Okay, great. How about these friends? Joy and Sadness. How did they meet? Right, yes, Riley's emotions. Who was the first emotion? Do you remember? Joy. And then Sadness. Would you consider them to be great friends? Yeah. Did they ever fight? Yeah. Do you remember why? Sadness felt like her feelings weren't valid. Like Joy wanted to ignore Sadness altogether. Okay, how about these two? Elva Bathrop and Galinda. This one's a little complicated, if I'm being honest. Would you consider them great friends? Did they start as friends? No, no. But they became great friends. Did they have conflict in their friendship? I think if you ever start an argument with a friend with, why don't you stay calm for once instead of flying off the handle, there's probably some tension there, okay? There's probably some feelings to navigate. So yes, while they are great friends, they definitely had some conflict, and we'll see what happens in part 2. How about this group, the Avengers? Great friends? I think so. I think they're pretty good friends. Did they have conflict? There's a whole movie about their conflict, right? Civil War is just 2 hours of them fighting. But they still continued to work together. I think they were trauma bonded, but they were still, good friends. Now, this next one is just for the leaders, okay? Students, maybe you can participate, but this is for the leaders. What about these two? My question is, were they great friends? I think so. Was it a healthy friendship? That might be the question. No. They annoyed each other every single day. But I do believe they were great friends. And this is a spoiler, for a show that's been out for 20 years. But when Michael Scott shows up at Dwight's wedding, you could tell that meant a lot to Dwight, and they were good friends. So I show you all this, I ask you these simple questions really because I believe there's a common misconception, and that is that we think great friends don't fight. We think great friends don't experience conflict, that great friends don't have to navigate tensions, but that's not true. We see it in TV, and we see it in movies, but we also see it in our own lives. And when I say conflict or fighting, I don't mean this big explosive fight where everyone's screaming and crying and no one wants to be friends anymore. I just mean the usual tensions that pop up in a friendship in your great friendships, you will feel misunderstood at some point. In your great friendships, you will disagree at some point. In your great friendships, you will say something that you thought was funny that actually wasn't, and it just hurt their feelings, and they will say something that they thought was funny and it wasn't, and it hurt your feelings. That's just what happens in great friendships. Because friendships, they're not perfect because people aren't perfect. I'm imperfect, my friend is imperfect, so our friendship is not going to be perfect. It's going to be imperfect. We're going to mess up. We're going to have conflict. We're going to have to navigate those tensions. And if the tensions and if the conflict and if the fighting is inevitable, then what do? How do we handle it well? Because I don't think anytime there's a small conflict, that means we have to stop being friends with that person. No, it can actually be beneficial to our friendship to work through the conflict if we know how to do it in a healthy way. And so today we're going to look at two different books of the Bible. We're going to be in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. And the Old Testament, just a reminder, is before Jesus, and then the New Testament is Jesus and then after his resurrection. But we're going to be in the Old Testament today, and we're going to be in a book that we actually looked at a lot in June. And I want to see if you remember what book this is. It was full of wisdom. Is full of wisdom. It was written by a king. Proverbs, that is correct. It was written by King Solomon, who was the king of Israel. And he was gifted all this wisdom from God, and he wrote it all down, and we now have that as the book of Proverbs. And something he talks a lot about is friendship. And look at what he says about friendship in Proverbs chapter 17. He says, "Love prospers when a fault is forgiven, but dwelling on it separates close friends." And so the thing about conflict is whenever you experience that, whenever you experience those tensions, when you have a disagreement with a friend, when you're feeling frustrated by a friend, that conflict wants to separate you and your friend. It wants to cause a divide between you and your friend. And when we dwell on it, when we don't let it go, when we're not willing to step into a potentially awkward or difficult conversation with our friend to talk about it, when we gossip about it to others, when we let it just grow bitterness and resentment, that separation just gets greater. But Solomon says, love, when we're willing to love the other person, the loving thing to do is when we learn to forgive, that separation isn't created. That separation doesn't grow. But we have to be willing to forgive. That's the loving thing to do. Love prospers when forgiveness is in a friendship. But Solomon's not the only one in the Bible to ever talk about forgiveness. This is talked about over and over and over again all through Scripture. But there's a story in one of the Gospels, the first one in Matthew, where Jesus is teaching to a small crowd of people, and all his disciples were there, and his disciples start asking him these just random questions. They just have all these questions for Jesus, and he's answering them very directly through parables. And then Peter asks a question. Peter was one of his disciples, and this is the question he asks Jesus in Matthew chapter 18. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? 7? Up to 7? How does 7 sound?" Jesus answered, "I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times." And some translations even say 7 times 7, 7 times 70. And so Jesus is saying, hey, you forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive, and you keep on forgiving. And this number, this 77, this isn't meant to be taken literally. That doesn't mean we keep score. That doesn't mean we keep a tally. Actually, in 1 Corinthians 13, it says, love keeps no record of wrongs. That's not the loving thing to do. No one wants to be friends with someone who, when you mess up, they go, ooh, strike. That's not a good friend. And so Jesus isn't saying, yes, 77 times. No, he's saying, you continue to forgive over and over and over again. And what I love about this story is that Peter was the one to ask the question. And as you read through the Gospels, you'll find that during the crucifixion, Peter is asked by people, hey, did you know that guy? Did you know Jesus? And he denies him 3 times, denies knowing one of his great friends, which is a hurtful thing to do. If someone said, hey, do you know her? And they said, no, that would hurt my feelings. But Peter denied Jesus 3 times, and Jesus forgave him. And so Peter, not knowing when he asked this question, would experience forgiveness from his Savior. And so, if we're called to forgive and forgive, what does that look like? But I want to be abundantly clear about something because in this series, we're talking about our great friends. And you will meet people in your life, and you will be friends with people in your life, and this might have already happened to you, where as you continue to be friends with them, you realize kind of quickly, oh, I think they're a good person. They're not a great friend for me. They don't bring out the best in me. They're consistently unkind. I can't trust them when I tell them something. They talk poorly about me behind my back. They try to hurt my feelings on purpose. They're not a great friend to me. And you don't have to be friends with them. That's okay. You can have boundaries, but you can still forgive them. But today we're talking about our great friends, the people who we know love us, we know have our backs, we know we can trust them, who show up for us when we need them. When we have conflicts with them, one of the best things we can do is learn to forgive. But I would argue that's not the first step. The first step in navigating conflict in a healthy way with our great friends is we have to apologize for our part. You see, rarely is conflict a one-way street. It usually takes two people to have tension. It takes two people to be in a fight. Rarely are you just fighting, with a brick wall. There's another person there. And so if we're having tension with our friend, there's a really good chance we have something to own. There's a really good chance we have something we need to apologize for. Even if you say, well, they hurt me and they said this, well, that's fine. How did you handle it? They did this to you, and then you went and talked about it to everybody else, and you refused to talk to them, and you blocked their number, and you don't want to even sit next to them at lunch. Well, that's not a kind thing to do. They may not even know they hurt you. And so you have something to apologize for now. We all have to know how to own our peace. And we go to our friend, and it might be awkward, and it might be a hard conversation, and we apologize to them. We're genuinely sorry for how we hurt them and how we allowed a separation in our friendship. And then, once we apologize, we forgive their part. And my hope is that you all have great friends who, when you apologize to them about conflict you're having or a fight you're having, they are quick to apologize and they're quick to own their part, and they may not be. It might take them some time, but you can still forgive, and you can still move forward. And you don't have to dwell on this. You see, when great friends fight, they make it right. Don't you love that rhyme? Isn't that fun? Let's all say it together. When great friends fight, yes, great friends are willing to apologize, are willing to forgive, and move forward. And it could actually be one of the best things for your friendship. It just makes your friendship stronger when you know that you can handle conflict. I want to tell you about one of my great friends. This is my friend Mackenzie. This is our 8th grade field trip to Jekyll Island. Super cool, I know. I moved from Florida to Georgia in 6th grade, and she was one of the first friends I made, and we were quick friends. And we have been friends since 6th grade. We were friends all through middle school and high school and even through college, and this is us at our college graduation, and I was going to find a more recent picture, but I don't take pictures with my friends, I found out. But we were at Olive Garden last week together, I swear. So we have been best friends for 20 years, which is a long time. Yeah, I know. But I look back and I think about all the little conflicts we had, all the little tensions we had to navigate in our friendship, just the minor things of, like I said, misunderstandings, or, when you get back from a vacation with a friend and you're like, enough of you, we need some space, all those little tensions. And I'm so grateful that I didn't let any of them cause a massive friendship-ending separation. None of them were worth that. Instead, it was worth it to apologize, to own my part, to forgive. I'm so glad she forgave me when I messed up. And together we were able to move forward. And there are some great friends in your life now who knows? You could be friends through middle school and high school and friends through college, and you could have Olive Garden together when you're in your 30s. We don't know. But you could have great friends around you right now, and I would hate for y'all to miss out on a friendship like this because of a small conflict a small disagreement, it is worth the hard conversation. It's worth apologizing and learning how to forgive. So as we head into a new school year this year, how can we strengthen our friendships by navigating conflict well? How can we be people who go first in apologizing, who go first in forgiving? How can we love others and forgive others the way that Jesus has so freely loved us and forgiven us? So, as you head to small group, I would love for you to think about this question. Name one thing you think middle schoolers fight about the most